Imagine that each of us comes into this world like a seed, and that seed falls into a particular relational soil, a specific set of caregivers, a specific emotional climate within specific physical conditions. And to survive, the seed must adapt. So it instinctively and quickly starts to make use of whatever nutrients are available around it, and to grow toward whatever light exists in that particular environment. That adaptation is intelligent and efficient. It's how life works. It's what any living system does under constraint. And humans are no different. In our human brains and nervous systems, what those early conditions produce is what Bowlby called internal working models. You can think of these as implicit internal rule books. They're kind of like maps that represent procedural rules about how the world works, how relationships work and whether people can be trusted, what you're worth to others, and how safe it is to need anything from anyone. These internal working models get constructed early, before we have words, and they're encoded in some of the deepest neural layers. And from there we carry them forward through life. I really want this to land viscerally, so let's go back to the seed in the soil. The seed grew into a particular kind of tree, shaped by and for a particular climate. Now imagine the weather conditions change. A warmer season arrives, there's more sunshine, more rain, but the tree doesn't simply change instantly. It doesn't open itself up to the new conditions, because its root structure, its canopy, its tolerance for hot and for cold, for drought, the way it's stooped because the wind was blowing from one particular direction, those adaptations evolved for the original climate. So the tree keeps operating as if the underlying climate remains the same, even as the weather shifts around it from day to day. And that assumption might very well be perfectly adaptive, if the warm spell of weather is just a fluke. Or it may be deeply costly in an environment that's truly changed to a new normal. This is why I think the language of secure versus insecure attachment is easy to misread. Think of secure attachment as a resilient all-weather plant. It grew in an environment that was responsive and predictable enough to permit steady growth and flexibility. An avoidant adaptation is a plant that learned to conserve water in a drought. An anxious adaptation learned to reach aggressively for light in a dim environment, where sunlight only came through sporadically. And the fearful avoidant adaptation is a plant whose soil delivered both water and toxins through the same root. And this made the development of a consistent strategy impossible, because reaching for what's needed most and retreating from it were equally necessary and equally dangerous. So insecure attachment styles aren't failures of development. We can understand them as self-protective strategies shaped by harsh, inconsistent, or unpredictable relational environments, all designed to adapt to the climate they evolved in. The risk and the cost is that they can become maladaptive or inflexible when the conditions change. And I'm pretty sure you can appreciate that the more extreme the original adaptation, the more difficult it would be for that plant to then get comfortable in this rain and shine, kind of neutral, balmy situation. What attachment theory implies, especially if we're insecurely attached, is that the internal maps we're navigating the world with might be designed for a different environment than the one we're currently living in. And we probably have blind spots around that, believing that this is simply how things are, and pointing to others or to our circumstances as the source of our interpersonal distress. by default, the tree's gonna grow more or less in the shape it already has. Similarly, left unexamined, insecure patterns persist unless you actively give them corrective relational experiences and do deep intentional work. As hard as it sometimes is for us to admit certain things to ourselves, awareness is the non-negotiable starting point. Because you can't steer a system that you can't even see.